ready.
The book we're reading is Night by Ellie Wiesel.
Yeah, I don't have
We
the
are
book,
starting on page 66. Cole Sweeney, Dan Tiki, and Drew Berard are going to be Miss Faye's guest readers today.
Can I go to the bathroom?
The summer was coming to an end. The Jewish year was almost over. On the eve of Rosh Hashanah, the last day of that cursed year, the entire camp was agitated, and every one of us felt the tension. After all, this was a day unlike all others. The last day of the year. The word last had an odd ring to it. What if it were really the last day? The evening meal was distributed in an especially thick soup, and nobody touched it. We wanted to wait until after prayer on the apple plaza, surrounded by electrified barbed wire. Thousands of Jews anguished on their faces, gathered in silence. Night was falling rapidly, and more prisoners kept coming from every block, suddenly able to overcome time and space, to will both into submission. What are you, my God? I thought angrily. Why do you compare to this stricken mass gathered to affirm to you their faith, their anger, their defiance? What does your grandeur mean? Master of the universe, in the face of all this cowardice, this decay and misery. And do you go on troubling these poor people's wounded minds, their ailing bodies? Go ahead, Tiki. Pop to page 67.
Some 10,000 men had come to participate in a solemn service, including a Bloxitite, the capos, and bureaucrats in service of death. Blessed by the Almighty. The voice of the officiating inmate had just become audible. At first, I thought it was the wind. God, blessed by God's name. Thousands of lips repeated the benediction, bent over like trees in a storm. Blessed by God's name? Why would I bless him? Every fiber in me rebelled, because he caused thousands of children to burn in his mass graves, because he kept six crematory working day and night, including Sabbath and holy days, because in his great might he had created Auschwitz, Birkenau, and Benu, and so many other factories of death. So could I say to him, Blessed be thou, Almighty, Master of the universe, who chose us among all nations to be tortured day and night, to watch as our fathers, our mothers, our brothers end up in furnaces, praised by thy holy name, for having chosen us to be slaughtered on thy altar? I listened as the inmate's voice rose. It was powerful yet broken, amid the weeping, the sobbing, the sighing of the entire congregation. All the earth and universe are God's. He kept pausing, as though he lacked the strength to uncover the meaning beneath the text. The melody was stifled in his throat. And I, the former mystic, was thinking, yes, man is stronger, greater than God. When Adam and Eve decided you chased them from paradise. Pop to Drew.
When you were displeased by Noah's generation, you brought down the flood. When Sodom lost your favor, you caused the heavens to rain down fire and damnation. But look at these men whom you have betrayed, allowing them to be tortured, slaughtered, gassed, and burned. What do? They pray for you. They pray for your name. All of creation bears witness to the greatness of God. In days gone by, Rosh Hashanah had dominated my life. I knew that my sins grieved the Almighty, and I have pleaded for forgiveness. In those days, I fully believed that the salvation of the world.
Finish the paragraph.
Depend on every one of my deeds, on every one of my prayers.
Thank you.
Back to the back, yes.
But now I
Question
no longer pleaded for anything. I was no longer able to lament. On the contrary, I felt very strong. I was the accuser, God the accused. My eyes had opened and I was alone, terribly alone in a world without God, without man, without love or mercy. I was nothing but ashes now, but I felt myself to be stronger than this Almighty to whom my life had been bound for so long. In the midst of these men assembled for prayer, I felt like an observer, a stranger. The service ended with Kaddish. Each of us recited Kaddish for his parents, for his children, and for himself. We remained standing in the apple plats for a long time, unable to detach ourselves from this surreal moment. Then came the time to go to sleep, and slowly the inmates returned to their blocks. I thought I heard them wishing each other a Happy New Year. I ran to look for my father. At the same time, I was afraid of having to wish him a happy year in which I no longer believed. He was leaning against the wall, bent shoulders sagging as if under a heavy load. I went up to him, took his hand, and kissed it. I felt a tear on my hand. Who was it? Whose was it? Mine? His? I said nothing, nor did he. Never before had we understood each other so clearly. The sound of the bell brought us back to reality. We had to go to bed. We came back from very far away. I looked up at my father's face, trying to glimpse a smile or something like it on his stricken face. But there was nothing, not the shadow of an expression, defeat. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Should we fast? The question was hotly debated. To fast could mean a more certain, more rapid death. In this place, we were always fasting. It was Yom Kippur year-round. But there were those who said we should fast precisely because it was dangerous to do so. We needed to show God that even here, locked in hell, we were capable of singing his praises. I did not fast, first of all, to please my father, who had forbidden me to do so, and then there was no longer any reason for me to fast. I no longer accepted God's silence. As I swallowed my ration of soup, I turned that act into a symbol of rebellion, of protest against him, and I nibbled on my crust of bread. Deep inside me, I felt a great void opening. The SS offered us a beautiful present for the new year. We had just returned from work. As soon as we passed the camp's entrance, we sensed something out of the ordinary in the air. The roll call was shorter than usual. The evening soup was distributed at great speed, swallowed as quickly. We were anxious. I was no longer in the same block as my father. They had transferred me to another commando, the construction one, where 12 hours a day I hauled heavy slabs of stone. The head of my new block was a German Jew, small with piercing eyes. That evening he announced to us that henceforth no one was allowed to leave the block after the evening soup. A terrible word began to circulate soon thereafter: selection. We knew what it meant. An SS would examine us. Whenever he found something frail, a muscleman was what we called those inmates, he would write down his number. Good for the crematorium. After the soup, we gathered between the bunks. The veterans told us, "You're lucky to have been brought here so late. Today, this is paradise compared to what the camp was 2 years ago. Back then, Buna was a veritable hell. No water, no blankets, less soup and bread. At night, we slept almost naked and the temperature was 30 below. We were collecting corpses by the hundreds every day. Work was very hard. Today, this is a little paradise. The capos back then had orders to kill a certain number of prisoners every day. And every week, selection. A merciless selection. Yes, you are lucky." "Enough. Be quiet," I begged them. "Tell your stories tomorrow or some other day." They burst out laughing. They were not veterans for nothing. "Are you scared?" We too were scared, and at that time for good reason. The old men stayed in their corner, silent, motionless, hunted down creatures. Some were praying. 1 more hour, then we would know the verdict, death or reprieve. And my father? I first thought of him now. How would he pass selection? He had aged so much. Our blockal test had not been outside a concentration camp since 1933. He had already been through all the slaughterhouses, all the factories of death. Around 9 o'clock he came to stand in our midst. Achtung! There was instant silence. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. For the first time his voice quivered. In a few moments, selection will take place. You will have to undress completely. Then you will go, one by one, before the SS doctors. I hope you will all pass. But you must try to increase your chances. Before you go into the next room, try to move your limbs, give yourself some color. Don't walk slowly, run. Run as if you had the devil at your heels. Don't look at the SS. Run straight in front of you. He paused and then added, and most important, don't be afraid. That was a piece of advice we would have loved to be able to follow. I undressed, leaving my clothes on my cot. Tonight there was no danger that they would be stolen. Tibby and Yossi, who had changed commandos at the same time I did, came to urge me, let's stay together, it will make us stronger. Yossi was mumbling something. He probably was praying. I had never suspected that Yossi was religious. In fact, I had always believed the opposite. Tibby was silent and very pale. All the block inmates stood naked between the rows of bunks. This must be how one stands for the Last Judgment. They are coming. 3 SS officers surrounded the notorious Dr. Mengele, the same one who had received us in Birkenau. The Blockel test attempted a smile. He asked us, ready?